2021, Hurricane Ida hit Louisiana hard. I lived through it. My power was out for over 2 weeks, as well as my internet. My fridge stopped. I didn't have cell service for over 72 hours, and my family was stuck in the dark, and we were sweating it out through the storm, both figuratively and literally. It wasn't just inconvenient, it was actually scary. And I learned the hard way just how much we rely on essential appliances and how helpless you can feel without power. That's where the Anker SOLIX F3000 comes in, a true game changer for emergencies and beyond. Now, of course, living in Southeast Louisiana, I have a generator, but it can be inconvenient to set up, something you're definitely not gonna do while the storm is still raging. And tragically, you cannot set them up indoors due to carbon monoxide and the obvious being fire hazard. And that's why I partnered with Anker for this SOLIX F3000 video. It is safe to use indoors, powering up to 3,600 watts of critical appliances until you can go outside and get your generator set up. One of the cool things about this F3000 is that if you know a storm is coming, you could go ahead and plug the battery into the wall and then plug your critical appliances or whatever you have into the F3000, getting ready for a power outage. And if you lose power, it'll automatically switch the power over to the F3000 and your appliances will hardly know the difference. This is called an uninterrupted power supply, or UPS. Now, another really cool thing about this F3000 is that it does pass-through charging up to 3,600 watts. So it can be powering heavy appliance loads up to 3,600 watts and be receiving 3,600 watts of charge. If you were using, let's say, 2,000 watts, you could also be feeding from a generator in 3,600 watts to be charging it while it's also passing that power through. And you also don't have to charge it at that full 3,600 watts. You could go into the app and you can actually reduce that down to as little as 100 watts. So it can kind of trickle charge throughout the day as you run your generator. And then you can shut off that noisy generator at night to use the silent F3000 instead. Now, I know you might scoff at the fact of using a battery with a generator, and I totally get that. I used to be that kind of person too, but you can also use solar. So the F3000 has 2 ports. One can go up to 165 volts and the other one 60 volts for a total of 2,400 watts input of solar. And you might say, okay, cool, Richard, that doesn't mean anything to me. And I'm not a solar expert by any means, but the cool thing about that one port that can do up to 165 volts is that it supports rigid panels. Of course, you can get Anker's panels that are more portable. So if you're gonna go out to camping, to a job site, something like that, you probably want a portable panel. But if you're using this as kind of home backup, you could pick up a few cheap rigid panels that you keep tucked away, stored away until you have some type of emergency, and then you could just kind of prop them up in your yard and you could plug them into that one port that can go up to 165 volts on this F3000. Unlike other power stations that I've tested, the F3000 has a very, very low idle burn rate. I've had other power stations where I unplug them and I have them just sitting there. I turn them on and they will go dead in a day or two just at their idle burn rate, which seems kind of like totally unacceptable to me. This one will go for days. Also, I plugged in my deep freezer, let that thing go to see how many hours I could get, and I was getting over 40 hours, and that was with no solar input, no generator, nothing. I just had the F3000, plugged in the freezer, and it went for 40 hours. The F3000 is compact and very easy to move. So this would be great also outside of your home if you've got maybe a tailgate, a campsite, job site, something like that, where you want to provide power to things that don't have a convenient source. This would be a great application for the F3000. So the standalone F3000 unit has a 3,072 watt-hour capacity, but it can be expanded upon all the way up to 12,288 watt-hours. If you also get another F3000 and a dual voltage hub, you could hook them together and it could provide up to 7,200 watts of output. And this thing is loaded with outputs. It's got 4 AC outputs, kind of the standard ones that are 20 amps. It's got one that goes up to 30 amps. It's got 2 100 watt USB-C outputs, 2 12 watt USB-A outputs, and 120 watt cigarette outlet. And I tested this F3000 for well over a month every single day in real world scenarios. So like I mentioned, I hooked up 3 portable flexible solar panels to this unit and had it run my cold plunge, and it was keeping the water in that chest freezer all the way down at about 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and it is very warm outside. It's 90 degrees Fahrenheit, and it sucks down about 400 watts when it kicks on, and it was able to do that pretty much indefinitely. During Ida, my gas generator was very loud, and I was kind of announcing to the world that I had power and that I had gas cans. And unfortunately, we were working with a disaster recovery group, and they also had a generator, and at night, they lost a bunch of their gas cans to theft. Something else I learned in Ida is that generators need usually daily downtimes. They're gonna need to be off for, in my case, it was an hour, and then basically every 2 days, I also had to change the oil. Not to mention that gas was almost impossible to find for upwards of a week. And the F3000 is just a great solution for kind of plugging these gaps that my generator had, where I could be powering things while my generator was down for maintenance or just in its daily off time, and so that I could power things at night silently so I wasn't drawing attention to myself and to my house. And I don't necessarily want another event like that, but if and when it happens, I will be ready in a different way now. And as I said, I just want to be prepared. So generally what I keep on hand is 2 weeks of food and water. That might seem extreme to you. A Starlink for backup communications, because in Ida, I lost cell service for almost 72 hours. So we had no power, no internet, and no cell service. We had no way to communicate with the outside world. That's why I also picked up a Starlink, and this F3000 could easily power a Starlink for days. So definitely don't wait like I did until your next storm. Pick up an Anker SOLIX F3000 today. Links to all this stuff will be in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. I know you've got zillions of other videos on YouTube that you could be watching, and you chose to stop by and watch this one. It is very much appreciated. As always, don't forget to give me a thumbs up, and we will see you next time.